On the 14th of May 2018, Nigeria immediate past Minister of Works, Dr. Mike Onolememen, was a guest speaker at a public lecture in New York, United States, hosted by Center for Media and Peace Initiatives on the theme Global Governance and Democratic Participation, the role of media and civil society in expanding democratic participation and ensuring good governance in Sub-Saharan African countries. The event was kick-started with an introduction of the former Minister of Works.
According to most experts, Dr. Onolememen's Federal Ministry of Works was rated as the most productive in getting projects completed. He's a member of the Nigerian Institute of Architects. He's a Knight of the Order of St. Mulumba in the Roman Catholic Church, and he's been honored by several professional bodies, including the Nigerian Society of Engineers, the Nigerian Institute of Surveyors, the Fellow of the Nigerian Mining and Geoservices Society, a Fellow of the Academy of Entrepreneurial Studies, and a Fellow of the Nigerian Institute of Quantity Surveyors. He has served on the Interim Management Committee of the Petroleum Special Trust, and he was in that role to oversee project management. In addition, he was appointed Minister of State for Defense, where he had the responsibility of supervising the Air Force of Nigeria and all military training institutes within the country. He was a chairman of the Defense Health Limited and a co-chairman with the United States Ambassador to Nigeria on the Nigerian Ministry of Defense and Collaboration Organization, and they collaborated there on HIV/AIDS solutions and strategies. He also served most recently as chairman of the Project Steering Committee for ECOWAS, and he was honored in 2014 with the highest national award, Commander of the Order of Niger, by the President of the Federal Republic, because of the many positive things and the positive projects he's accomplished for his country, Nigeria. He was also recognized in the United States by the Georgia Black Congressional Delegation in June 2015 for his service to Nigeria. And he has been happily married and he has many children, and we are pleased to have him here to speak to us tonight, and hopefully we will learn something really interesting. So I turn it over to you, Bulldozer.
Dr. Mike Onolememen began his speech by decrying the lack of citizens' participation as a huge obstacle to attaining purposeful governance in Sub-Saharan Africa.
Thank you very much for that, what I would call a wonderful introduction of my very humble self. Well, but let me say I'm glad to be here today in your midst, and especially to have the privilege of joining the conversation in global governance and democratic participation. The lack of citizen participation in the democratic process, especially in Sub-Saharan Africa countries, has robbed the citizens of good governance and led to the non-attainment of the lofty goals of democracy.
To the bulldozer, how a government is run will determine if governance is good or bad, because public governance has to do with the conduct of government at all levels.
Governance is the way society sets and manages the rules that guide policy making and policy implementation. Public governance is concerned with the conduct of government at all levels to bring about the best possible benefit to citizens. Therefore, governance can be good or bad depending on the manner and mode of governing.
The positives and gains of good and effective governance, according to the bulldozer, are a lot.
Good and effective governance helps to strengthen democracy, promote economic prosperity, bring about social cohesion, and ultimately reduce poverty.
Good governance should be able to allocate resources judiciously and encourage equality and fundamental human rights to all.
Governance is good when it allocates and manages resources to respond to collective socioeconomic and political problems facing citizens. It can be argued, therefore, that good governance should promote gender equality, sustain the environment, enable citizens to exercise personal freedom, and provide tools to reduce poverty, deprivation, fear, and violence in the society.
He noted that political, economic, and social governance are related.
Over time, different scholars have identified three main types of governance. We have the political or public governance, economic governance, and of course, social governance. These three types of governance are arguably inseparable and interrelated, particularly in Sub-Saharan Africa context, where the governments are actively involved in the three types of governance, with a private sector that is yet to effectively amend to take its rightful place in economic governance.
He emphasized that the role of institutions in public sector governance is fundamental.
In public sector governance, institutions are central to the developmental process. As the World Bank Group in 2002 pointed out, economic and socio-political development of most developing countries is dependent on public sector institutions in those countries. And this is very true for Sub-Saharan Africa countries. The role of the public service, otherwise known as the bureaucracy, in achieving good governance cannot be underestimated. This can be gleaned from the central role it plays in the formulation and implementation of public policies designed for the development of the society.
How the institutions function for the good of the society should be a yardstick for rating governance.
Therefore, governance should be seen as the way power is exercised through a country's economic, political, and social institutions.
Dr. Mike Onolememen is of the view that institutions should be established and empowered to ensure that political leaders operate within established framework. This is to prevent abuse of powers by operators of governance.
In reality, it is the political leadership of a country that exercises power. Governance, therefore, should be seen as the traditions and institutions by which authority in a country is exercised for the common good. And this includes the processes by which those in authority are elected, monitored, and replaced, the capacity of the government to effectively manage its resources and implement sound policies that are beneficial to citizens, the respect of citizens and the state for the institutions that govern economic and social interaction among them as well.
Accountability and transparency, according to the former Minister of Works, should be the norm for any government.
The responsive nature of good governance requires that institutions and the decision-making process aim to serve every segment of the society. Accountability is an important component of good governance, which makes it mandatory for those in authorities to show transparency and accountability to those they govern in whatever they do.
The consequences of citizens' non-participation in the political process in the Sub-Saharan Africa are enormous.
Today, in Sub-Saharan Africa, citizen participation in the democratic process is very low. This has led to non-participatory democratic governance in these countries, with negative consequences such as poor allocation of resources, non-accountability of the government to the governed, lack of transparency, prevalence of corruption, hunger, unemployment, unabated conflict, lack of basic health care, low rate of school enrollment, inequality between citizens, breakdown of law and order, unabated armed banditry, and violent conflict.
But what are the reasons for citizens' non-participation in the political processes?
One may ask, why is citizens' participation in the democratic process in Sub-Saharan Africa low? The answer may not be far-fetched. Most African scholars have attributed the low citizens' participation in the democratic process in Sub-Saharan Africa countries to flawed electoral processes that often throw up winners who may not have won the actual popular vote, but would have influenced electoral officials to manipulate the processes and determine the outcome. Beyond the manipulation of the electoral processes, there's also the issue of lack of good governance over the years in the region, signposted by lack of potable water supply, lack of adequate electricity, lack of good healthcare, and absence of gainful employment.
He observed that non-inclusion and lack of leadership and government presence has led to non-participation of citizens.
These factors, in conjunction with others, have led to a general lack of faith in the government, with consequential apathy among citizens.
The Nigerian experience is a case study of how manipulation and rigging from our leaders has led to voters' apathy.
When citizens are disillusioned by repeated electoral fraud, marked by violence and non-transparent elections, with sometimes non-reflective poll results, general apathy among citizens set in, leading to future non-participation on the part of the citizens.
But what can we do to galvanize and motivate citizens to develop interest in governance and the processes?
In Nigeria, for example, virtually all local government elections organized by the various state governments not only fall short of the standards, the processes are manipulated, and votes are allocated without any bearing with the actual field exercise. The consequences have been the denial of good governance to the people of the local government areas in Nigeria, about 774 in number, and the repeated boycott of local government elections by opposition parties in most of the states. The Kano State example was made worse by underage voters, which led to a national outcry, forcing the National Electoral Body to commence investigation into how these underage voters that we saw on our television screens were registered in the first place.
For democracy to succeed, the country's security apparatus must be loyal to the people and not those in power.
To deepen citizens' participation in Sub-Saharan Africa democracies, the executive arm of government in the region must not only be seen as patriotic, but truly dedicated to serving the needs of their countries. In the same vein, the legislative arm of government in the region should engage and hold the executive arm accountable for their action. The judicial arm of government on its part must be fearless and dispense justice when there's a conflict between the executive and the legislature. If the relationship between the arms of government are in tandem with the country's constitution, the confidence of citizens to participate in the democratic process will be rekindled. The judiciary is the last bastion of hope for the ordinary citizens. And once that hope is tampered with, frustration and apathy will set in.
The refusal of political leaders to leave power when they lose election, according to the former Minister of Works, contributes to the citizens' frustration of political activities.
It is important at this point to point out, based on our recent experiences, that the military and other security agencies, the public service, or the government bureaucracy at all times must uphold the constitution of their country and ensure that their loyalty will undeniably be to their country and not to the heads of the various government or any individual at any time, if we must sustain democracy or sustain the interests of citizens in participating in the democratic process. This will ensure that all arms of government are working under the rule of law, leading inevitably to good governance in Sub-Saharan Africa. This is especially important when it comes to succession of one government by another as a result of the electionary process.
Dr. Mike Onolememen praised Nigeria and Ghana for setting a positive example for other countries to follow.
The disappointing examples of Cote d'Ivoire and Gambia, where city presidents in the past refused to leave office after electoral defeats, are still fresh in our minds. However, The shining successful example from Nigeria in 2015, Ghana in 2016, Zimbabwe in 2017, as well as Liberia and Sierra Leone in 2018, have rekindled hope that the sit-tight syndrome by Sub-Saharan Africa leaders will soon be a thing of the past. And these developments are capable of affecting citizens' participation in the democratic process.
The former Minister of Works has a strong message for the media. The media, along with the civil society, must be the face and the voice of the people if democracy must triumph.
No doubt, the media and civil society group have a crucial role to play in the quest for enhanced citizen participation in the democratic practice in sub-Saharan Africa countries. The media, as society's watchdog, should continually expose any arm of government that is not working under the rule of law and cause the relevant institutions of government to hold such arm of government accountable.
Investigative journalism and proactive information dissemination must be the primary remit of the media, even as they ensure that they are guided by objectivity.
The media should be proactive and equipped enough to interrogate the electoral processes leading to elections with the aim of educating citizens on their role, as well as beam searchlight on candidates for election to help citizens make informed choices.
The media must lead the discourse on our political activities and the way forward.
To ensure that citizens of sub-Saharan Africa countries tap into the promise of good governance, the media and civil society groups must brace up and begin to set agenda for national democratic discourse, as well as help to hold candidates for elections, electoral officials, and government functionaries accountable to ensure that credible processes are put in place for local, state, regional, and national elections in sub-Saharan Africa countries.
If we must achieve success, the bulldozer has some suggestions on the way forward.
Critical to success in this direction is that the various national electoral bodies should be constituted neither by the executive arm of government or by the legislative arm of government. The reason is not far-fetched because of their partisanship. In my opinion, this role will be better served by the judicial arm of government, which is the only non-partisan body among the three arms of government. In sub-Saharan Africa today, nowhere is the cry for justice more palpable than in the electoral process. And this is as a result of the repeated disappointment citizens have experienced in the electoral processes of sub-Saharan Africa countries.
The Judicial Service Commission, according to him, should assume the responsibility of appointing electoral officers.
In sub-Saharan Africa countries today, the Judicial Service Commission that had responsibility for the appointment and discipline of judges should be saddled with the responsibility of screening and appointing electoral officers, either at the local, state, regional, or national level, to midwife credible elections in sub-Saharan Africa countries.
However, they can include party officials.
It may be necessary to include representatives of various registered political parties participating in national elections as part-time members of the electoral bodies.
This, according to him, will go a long way towards having a culture of transparency in our political processes.
This may be helpful in the quest for transparent elections in the sub-region.
Dr. Onolememen argued that the media should always be at the forefront of educating and informing the citizens in all areas.
The media and civil society group should not only be at the vanguard of educating citizens on their rights to participate in the democratic process, they should also set the political and social agenda that could be beneficial to citizens, as well as help to expose any act of electoral corruption with the aim of ensuring the emergence of credible processes of electioneering that will guarantee that the wishes of citizens voters are respected.
To the bulldozer minister, an unbiased media is the beginning of cultural and political redemption of sub-Saharan African countries.
Clearly, an unbiased media, in conjunction with proactive civil society groups that help to give political education to citizens have the potential of changing the narrative of citizen participation in democratic governance in Sub-Saharan countries for the better.
The former minister concluded his speech by reminding us that what we need urgently is an objective enhancement and empowerment of institutions as against the celebration of strong political leaders.
Finally, based on recent experiences in Sub-Saharan Africa countries, I make bold to say that Sub-Saharan Africa countries have no need for strong and dictatorial leaders. Rather, what is needed are strong institutions that will guarantee enhanced citizens' participation in the democratic process and at the same time be capable of holding the political leadership accountable in public governance. When this happens, good governance will flourish in Sub-Saharan Africa countries, and the prevalence of poverty, hunger, and violent conflict will pave the way for happiness and prosperity in the region. On this note, I want to thank you for the opportunity to join in this narrative on global governance and the democratic participation in the Sub-Saharan Africa countries. Thank you very much, and God bless you.
The event was brought to a close with the conferment of the Center for Media and Peace Initiative CMPI Leadership Award on the former minister for his outstanding leadership in the improvement of infrastructure in Nigeria, and also with the Fellowship Award of CMPI on Dr. Mike Onolememen.
In appreciation of your outstanding leadership, especially in the issue of improving the infrastructure in Nigeria, which is one of the major problems in that country, we would like to recognize you and give you this leadership prize to honor and appreciate your service to the country and perhaps to Africa as well. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
You can also present, we also want to present and welcome you to the fold of CMPI Fellows as well.
Okay, so this award now honors you as a member of the Fellows for the Center for Media and Peace Initiatives. Center for Media and Peace Initiatives.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you so much.